The PlayStation 5 has been out for 3 years now. That's enough time for the console to have a solid library filled with great games that bring fun, enjoyment, and satisfaction. But we're not looking at any of those games today. Oh no, we're looking at the absolute worst PS5 games. These PS5 games are filled with bugs, poor gameplay, terrible controls, cringy characters and plots, and just are overall disasters. But before we get into this list, make sure you hit that sub button to watch plenty of other PS5 content on this channel, from countdowns to my showcase of my personal collection. Plug your nose because these PS5 games stink. And hey, if you like these games, that's okay too, but a lot of people don't. So here we go. The Grey Hill Incident. The Grey Hill Incident is an unpleasant and downright laughable attempt at a sci-fi survival horror game. Rancid dialogue, shoddy game design, wafer-thin substance, and a complete lack of cohesive storytelling are just the tip of a very large iceberg of problems. This story-driven survival horror game is about a classic alien invasion which takes place during the early 90s. As Ryan Baker, equipped with a baseball bat and a few bullets in his revolver, the story takes you across the atmospheric neighborhood of Grey Hill, which is invaded by UFOs and gray aliens. The Grey Hill Incident could have cornered a niche in the market, yet its forgettable story, poor dialogue, and lazy gameplay make it one to miss. Lego Brawls. This game has awful gameplay, bad controls, repetitive music, and a catastrophic combat system. There's only one redeeming quality to this brawler, and that's that you can build and customize your own Lego toys. But then again, a better way to spend your money would just be buying an actual Lego set. Lego Brawls was supposed to be a light-hearted team action brawler where anything can happen. You would be able to design your own heroic character with unique brawling abilities that included building power-ups out of bricks. Instead, you get terrible core gameplay, an incredibly grindy unlock system, which just equates to very few redeeming qualities to this game. Forspoken. You would expect a Square Enix title to be released with a certain quality about it, but that is not the case with Forspoken. Forspoken's issues stem from the following. The open world is devoid of meaningful side activities, enemies are too spongy with unsatisfying combat, the game is full of dull environments and colors, the story is very formulaic, and most importantly, the protagonist isn't likable and doesn't have any meaningful growth throughout the entire story.
I just move shit with my mind.
Perhaps our connection has somehow awoken some abilities.
I just moved shit with my mind.
I just keep hearing I.
I just move shit with my freaking mind!
All this paired with poor writing, poor voice acting performances, the game is just painful to go through at many points. Forspoken was supposed to be the next great open world game filled with magic. Instead, it was a massive flop and financial disaster. Grand Theft Auto Trilogy. The original Grand Theft Auto Trilogy on the PS2 were near masterpieces, but the PS5 release of this trilogy is another story. This was a slap in the face to loyal fans of the franchise who've supported the GTA series since the 90s. It was an absolute joke of a release, and those involved really should be ashamed of the work that they did on this game. They turned one of the greatest video game series into a hideous collection of mobile game junk that looks like it was fan-made. Even in performance mode, it still often drops below 30 frames per second, and many songs of the original versions are deleted. This was clearly a cash grab from Rockstar, and this trilogy is nothing but garbage and filled with bugs. Goodbye, Volcano High. Let's just pretend for a moment that this game isn't about prehistoric furries in high school exploring their sexuality with everything and anything that moves. Let's just pretend. Aside from the extremely cringe writing, plot, dialogue, and characters, Goodbye Volcano High suffers from a migraine of other issues. There's no gameplay, replay value, or a feeling of accomplishment. The choices you are given in this game are completely useless. Goodbye Volcano High is advertised as a hybrid cinematic narrative, rhythm game, coming of age, interactive movie visual novel experience. And that's just a long phrase for a weird, crappy game.
This is your moment. The first of many your moments. Time to face the music.
EFootball 2022. Konami couldn't have chosen a worse way to bring its football franchise to the new generation, as eFootball 2022 seems more like a mobile game ported to the PS5, and now Konami is facing an uphill battle to regain the trust of the community and come back from what could have been the worst sports simulation in the history of video games. eFootball debuts terribly with this new game as a service model, but that's not its only problem. It lacks content and is plagued by lots of technical and visual issues that puts the new Pro Evolution Soccer far behind its own legacy. This is a huge buggy mess that should be avoided at all costs. Skull Island Rise of Kong. Skull Island Rise of Kong is ugly and full of bugs, but the real trouble is that at its core, it's just boring. It makes no meaningful attempts to do anything new or clever, with mindless combat and pointless platforming that make it feel like a worse version of every action game from the last 20 years. The game barely qualifies as playable given its myriad of technical issues, but even when it is working as intended, you'll wish that it wasn't. It looks terrible, and you'll wonder, how is this on the PS5? Now, graphics aren't everything, but that's like saying you like someone for their personality. You need to have a little bit of both, and Skull Island lacks any sexiness or personality. I mean, graphics and gameplay. You know what I meant. Enchanted Portals. Gee, I wonder what game Enchanted Portals was trying to copy. It takes the foundations of a familiar game, Cuphead, in both style and substance, yet fails to provide a compelling experience in either regard. There's clear effort being put into this game in terms of the art and animation, yet the gameplay feels far more unpolished than appearances would have you believe. Random level designs and frustrating enemy placement leads to a game that is nothing but an irritation. Enchanted Portals copies almost everything about Cuphead except for the precision of its mechanics, the tightness of its design, and the enjoyment gleaned by mastering it. Postal 4 No Regrets. Just like the typo in its title, Postal 4 was either a mistake or a poor attempt at being deliberately bad. There is nothing redeemable about this game except maybe the colorful static cutscenes that you see pop up at the start and the end of your day. Even an army of coders couldn't fix its many bugs, glitches, crashes, and other problems. It was so painful to play this game that it could have been recognized as a means of torture. The missions can be tedious, the world is uninspired, and exploration is again painful. The Lord of the Rings Gollum. Whew. You know a game is terrible when the dev team releases a statement right as the game reaches the public. Broken beyond belief, but also a fundamentally bad idea for a video game with insanely shallow and repetitive gameplay, Gollum is not only the worst mainstream game of the year, but perhaps the worst of this generation. From its abysmal graphics to its utter failure of delivering Middle-earth in any interesting way, this is an example of a game that should be scrapped from its concept inception. The controls don't feel right, the level design is outdated, the music doesn't match the situations, and visually it is very inconsistent, and I could go on and on. I'll just stick to a short conclusion. Avoid this game. This is the worst game on the PS5.
Why would I create something that is so fragile and ever-changing? We don't really know, my dear.
So those were 10 of the worst PS5 games that have been released. Which of them have you played? But more importantly, have you enjoyed any of these games? Are there any redeeming qualities in some of these? Let me know in the comments below, or list some games that are terrible that weren't featured on this list. And while you're writing your comments, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel to watch plenty of more PS5 content. Thanks for watching.